Hey there kids, it's me, MrCreepyPasta, and before we get started on tonight's story, I want to let you know about one quick thing. Tonight's author, Jordan Group, is available also on YouTube. If you like some of the stories that you hear from him here on my channel, then I'm sure you'd love to hear stories from the man himself on his own. You can take a look at the link in the description down below, youtube.com/@JordanGroup, or you can click the little eye you see popping up right now in the top right-hand corner of your screen. Give him a sub, give him a follow, ring the bell. I'm sure that you will all love the horror that he has to share with you. And now, on to tonight's story. I've been playing The Sims for a long time. If you've never heard of it, it's basically this computer game version of real life. You control a person called a Sim, and you live their life for them, telling them what to do, selecting their personality types, house, job, family, pets, you name it. You can use the game to make your own dream life, in digital form, of course. There have been several iterations of The Sims, and each one comes with its collection of expansion packs. These expansions let you play as vampires or werewolves, secret agents, and evil spies. You could be a detective, or a fireman, or an astronaut, or anything else you choose. The current game has so many different expansions that you could spend thousands of dollars if you purchased all of them. And I have. Although I always try to buy them when they're on sale. Through all the different versions of the game and all the expansions, I've played as the same character, more or less. He's basically a cooler version of me, with a nicer house and better clothes. He's stylish, and he has friends and a cat. My Sim's name is Jordan, just like mine, and all the neighbors in town love him. He's easy to get along with, he's handsome and funny and personable, and all the things that I'm not. After so many thousands of hours playing the game, Sim Jordan has become a beloved best friend of everyone in the game. Considering the Sim's AI and how each character gets more intelligent the longer you play, I must have the smartest, most popular Sim in existence. The cool thing about the game is that it constantly finds new ways to surprise you. Every time I play, something interesting happens that I hadn't expected. Like today, for instance, I was playing as my usual character and he was going about his business when I noticed that he was doing something different. Sim Jordan was putting up scaffolding as if he were about to work on his house or do some kind of construction project. Then he began hauling over bricks and cement using a wheelbarrow that I had purchased as a garden decoration. But that wheelbarrow wasn't supposed to actually work. I mean, just like the cars in Sim Jordan's driveway, it was just for decoration. I watched him, fascinated, and saw that he was adding another floor onto the house that I had made for him. This made no sense for a couple of reasons. In The Sims, there are two modes, live mode and build mode, and the characters are supposed to freeze in place whenever you switch over to build mode. Not only that, but the Sims are never the ones to build things or choose to redesign their home. Only the person playing the game is allowed to make those kinds of decisions. I selected my character and told him to go do something else. I didn't want a second floor added onto my house. If I'd wanted that, I would have done it myself, like I had dozens of other houses that I'd built. Go cook some food, you're hungry, I said into the computer screen. And strangely, I could have sworn he actually looked up at me and shook his little digital head. What the hell? Surely I just imagined that little head shake. Sometimes the Sims are stubborn and took a few minutes to respond to commands, but they always listened eventually. This time, though, my character didn't listen. I hit the fast forward button, waiting for him to respond to my command, but he just kept hammering away at the construction, and pretty soon there was another floor added to his modest house. The little son of a bitch was working quickly. I tried to delete the new addition, but the game glitched and wouldn't let me do it. It just wouldn't let me open my old save file either, as I tried desperately to undo what the digital me had done. Okay, fine. You want a second floor so bad? There you go. Got a second floor now. Probably screwed up my whole game, you stupid glitchy Sim. I was talking to the computer screen again, and didn't think twice about it. I did that a lot. Go to bed. You're exhausted, I told my Sim, and he actually listened to me this time. He shuffled off to bed with his energy bar down to 0, colored bright red, and I did the same. It was 3 a.m., and it had been a long day. The next morning I woke up to find the computer was on. Had I forgotten to turn it off the night before? I couldn't remember. But I always turned it off at night. Such an ingrained habit that I didn't even recall shutting it down. Then I looked at the screen and I saw my Sim was doing construction again. I definitely remembered exiting the game. So how had it started up again? Not only that, but now several other Sims were helping my character to build more levels onto the house. It didn't even look like a house now, I realized. It was more of a medium-sized skyscraper. What the hell are you little dicks up to? I asked the screen, sitting down to observe. I was no longer angry at my Sims for disobeying. Now I was completely caught up in what they were doing. The whole neighborhood had come to help, I realized. And not only that, but they were dismantling their own homes and businesses to supply construction material for the project. Hollowed out homes and shops could be seen on the overhead map, some of them with only the copper pipes left over, like the bones of a vermin eaten by vultures. This has got to be a joke, I said to myself, pulling out my phone. I began to Google search for some sim news, looking for anything about the current gag the company was apparently playing on its customers. The designers of the game had a real sense of humor that sometimes bordered on obnoxious. This was different from anything that they'd ever tried before, though. It was pretty funny, I had to admit. But at the same time, I hoped that they had a plan to restore my game to normal afterwards. Some people were probably pissed off, I thought, searching Twitter and Google News, but finding nothing about the situation. I couldn't find anything talking about Sims building a tower and acting strangely. I tried searching for it every possible way. It came up with a lot of Reddit posts and YouTube videos, but none that answered my question. I checked the game settings for neighborhood stories and tried to turn it off, but found that it was already disabled. The Sims in my neighborhood should not have been able to do what they were doing. It went against the game's fundamental programming. I called EA customer support and was transferred to technical support, then back to customer support, and back to technical support again, before hanging up the phone when they tried to do the same thing again. It just looked like I was on my own. Nobody knew how to fix this weird glitch I was experiencing. I didn't want to start a new game with a new character, but it looked like I was going to have to do just that. Some games get really glitchy if you play for too long with the same character. I'd experienced that problem a few times before with other games, so I began to resign myself to the fact that I'd be starting from scratch, since none of my previous save files were opening. I'll give it one more night, I said to myself, turning the computer off. Maybe it'll be back to normal again tomorrow. The next morning I got out of bed and went straight to the computer. This time I was positive I had turned it off, but it was powered on again. The Sims was open. My same usual game running as if it had been playing in my sleep. I sat down and stared numbly at the screen and tried to figure out how much progress the Sims had made in the tower that they were building. Everyone in town was working on the project, it looked like. I saw someone accidentally slip and fall from a great height and go plummeting down from the top, screaming as they plummeted and landing on the ground with a wet, goopy splat. The other Sims didn't even take a second look at the body. They just kept working. Except for a small crowd of them who were not working. Instead, they were assembled in a throng around a stage on ground level. At the bottom of the tower, I saw my character was there, standing at the pulpit. He was dressed in a purple robe and speaking in Simlish, the language that the Sims use. He held a book in the air and spoke in a pious tone of voice to a large crowd which had assembled around him. He gesticulated and spoke in deep, rumbling, run-on sentences like a Pentecostal preacher. A banner was hanging above the doorway of the huge tower, the building that had once been my Sim's house. I couldn't help but wonder what the banner said, written in Simlish as it was. Stairway to heaven, maybe? I'd been raised Catholic, and all the old Bible stories were still in the back of my mind, along with that good old Catholic guilt, which tormented me occasionally. The Tower of Babel was one of those stories I remembered learning in church. It was an Old Testament story from back when God was angry and vengeful, for those who might not know. It was when all of the early people of the earth started building a giant tower, hoping to reach heaven. But then God became upset and smashed it to pieces. The people who had built that tower suddenly began to speak in different languages after that, and couldn't understand each other anymore. Hence the Tower of Babel. I wondered if the Sims were building their own Tower of Babel. They were trying to reach me, their God. The one who was responsible for bringing them into existence, but also responsible for all their suffering and pain. I thought back to all the times I'd killed Sims for fun, feeding them to my cow plants, letting them get struck by lightning. I had electrocuted them and drowned them, had them eaten by piranhas and set on fire, all for my own selfish entertainment. Did they consider me their God? Or their devil? Laughing at the absurd thought, I decided the whole thing really must have been a prank, or a trick that EA was playing on some of their customers. Maybe I was going to win some sort of prize, and that was why the customer service people on the phone were being so mysterious and pretending not to know what was causing the bug. I sat back and watched with a smile on my face as the scene played out in front of me. I tried not to consider those terrible paranoid thoughts again. Those were the thoughts of people who were locked up in a padded room, not the thoughts of sane people. My game characters weren't coming to life. They weren't building a tower so they could come and get me. It was just a weird glitch. Right? It occurred to me briefly that I should just delete the game after that. Wish I had. I told myself it was okay, and just watched as the tower got larger and larger, and the group of Sims huddled around my character began to sing dark, haunted-sounding hymns in their strange alien language, lighting candles, their faces flickering in the dim glow. It was 3 a.m. in the game, but nobody was going to sleep. It was like they were holding a vigil, a midnight mass, a dark ceremony to celebrate something awful. I watched The Sims for several more minutes before I had to go out to do some errands. I turned off the computer, wondering to myself if it would be turned back on again when I returned. After running several errands, getting groceries and other necessities, I finally got back home again. My hands were full of heavy bags. I dropped them all at once, causing a jar of pickles to shatter loudly on the hardwood floor as I stood staring at the chaos of my apartment. Someone had been inside, and they'd vandalized the place. The refrigerator was hanging open, books were on the floor, clothes were ripped to shreds. And worst of all, my computer screen was broken. It looked like something had smashed it with a hammer from the inside. Impossible. And there were shards of broken glass all over my desk. And that's when I saw the footprints, about my size, leading from the cracked computer screen to the chair, and then onto the floor, caked in mud and dirty with grime. Not possible. The door closed behind me, and I heard a voice speak softly, sending a chill up my back. "Sul," it said. I gulped, looking at the slightly digitized face which stared back at me. Sim Jordan looked at me and cocked its head like a confused dog, waiting for me to respond. It took a step forward and spoke again. "Sul," it said now with a hint of impatience. "Hello, Sul," I said back. That was a Simlish for hello. I knew that much after playing for so long. "Uba esta place?" it said, taking a step forward. A creepy computer-generated grin played at the corner of its lips. Each time it came closer, I heard a burst of static and distortion and winced at the pain of feedback whining in my ears. It was like having the stereo playing when you call into a radio station. The sound of something hearing itself and repeating it back with knives scratching at glass. Earth. This is reality, I said, hoping that it understood what I meant. "Cuba is reality?" my Sim asked. Its eyebrows furrowed, taking another step closer. The high-pitched whine of feedback blasted me again, growing in intensity by tenfold. I took 2 stumbling steps backwards, reeling into the fridge and catching the corner of the door square in my back. It flared up in terrible pain, and I cried out, opening my eyes to see the thing was standing just in front of me now. "Cuba is reality." It reached out and grabbed me by the throat, and it felt like I was being scalded by a hot brand across my neck. The feedback whined in my ears so loud and so painful now that I didn't even realize I was screaming until a few long moments had passed and I wondered who was making that awful sound. My Sim's head tilted again as he looked in my eyes with a cold stare. He dropped me to the ground after several long minutes. I knew what he wanted. I had to tell him, no matter how mad it might make him. Your reality, it's not real. It's a game. It's entertainment. You live in a simulation. He looked down at its hands and looked at a mirror I had set up nearby, as if having a revelation. Nishka, it's not possible. It is. It's the truth. I thought for a moment that he would run back to the computer and somehow climb back inside, but instead he just continued to stare, his eyes flickering over to the smashed computer screen just behind me. A too-real smile spread across his face. I looked back to see a furry, black-clawed hand reach out from the computer screen, and I heard a growl beginning to emanate from within. I should have never bought that fucking werewolf expansion. After a quick escape, I ended up at a nearby internet cafe, and I typed this up to warn you all. If you play The Sims and your character starts acting strange, just delete the game immediately. Otherwise, who knows what we might unleash into the real world. Hey there kids, it's me, MrCreepyPasta, and thank you so much for watching tonight's video. And if you guys are not listening on the podcast, then I strongly suggest you check out Spotify. The MrCreepyPasta Storytime podcast on Spotify is exactly what you see here on YouTube. Or if you're listening on the podcast, I strongly suggest you check out YouTube. The MrCreepyPasta channel on YouTube is the exact same thing you see on Spotify. So really, there's no reason to cross-platform unless you just want to see more things. Or you want to see more of me, which you can also do on Twitter at MrCreepyPasta. And as always, I want to give a big thank you to everybody who supports me on Patreon. That includes everybody who's been waiting for me to update my Patreon, and I thank you all so much for being so patient with me. But especially, I want to give a thank you to Jordan Alexander Sanchez, Jakob Fenske, Stephanie Butler, Bobby Karman, Chance Burnett, Kraus, Tristain Pelton, AcidSystem, Adam Gerecke, Aeryn Stormcrow, Aika Limchoc, Amber Clark, Angelus, Atomaurus, Bastion Beefcake, Blue the Enigma, Brayden Morris, Broken Beast 320, Captain Scurvy, Caspian, ChellyJay, CoryxKenshin, Cronut 509, Crusader Chocobo, Cryptic Nightmares, Curse Pox Primarch, Dakota Lane Whetstone, Daniel Polson, Darth Myber, Deleted Account, Dirt Diver 030, M, Esteban, Fester's Lampshade, Freddy Krueger, Gorag Trimagazine, Grand Moth the Milky, Hades' Nephew, Happy Birthday Jason Wilson, Harley, Himbo Jerry, Horseman Sect Time, Insanity Gamer X, Jay Cairns, Jesus Cornell, Jordan Humble, Justin LaFontaine, Kaylee Ambrose, Kiri the Sloth, Crazy Kid, Cryolinian, Lambda M98, Lisa Cottrell, Little Crow, Lord Life's Best, Lupita Galvin, Love You Eminem, Matt Bach, Melted Lake, Michael Allen Jr. Brashears, Mike, Mr. Marcus Blitz, Nate Cull, Nico Kayo, Psychomel, Red Shadowcat, Rob Like Sharp Things, Samahai, Sashi Suzaku, Seclude, Stricken, Tali Sue, Tater Chip, That Creepy Chick, The Ginger Bros, Turtle Man, Voice of Sand, William King, Xavier and Cheyenne, Yargol, and Zachary Graphius. If you would like to join this list of names that I horribly mispronounce, then please head over to patreon.com/MrCreepyPasta, or you can always check out the names in the description down below, and I appreciate it infinitely. So thank you all on Patreon, thank you all so much, and to everyone, sweet dreams.